We are halfway to the game. It is Wednesday on the Podcast Daily. It's a stock day. It's a stock watch day. But do you need them if you get to the game? I think we should just be talking about the most important matchups and the most important players. Do you agree?
Sounds great.
Do you agree?
There can't be any stocks left.
Yeah, we've got all the stocks already.
Yeah.
We own the Ohio State market. He's Bill Landis. That's Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. So let's dig into it. Bill, you are the resident ball knower of the podcast.
This guy knows balls.
We're off to a great start. I don't know why that was necessary.
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day from the podcast. Is there anything else that is as important as Michigan's defensive line and Ohio State's offensive line?
No, I do think there is another kind of unit versus unit matchup that I find really intriguing here, but that's where you have to start. And it's the there's a lot of conversation about Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant and Ohio State now having to rework the interior of its offensive line. The ends for Michigan are also very good. Like it is Ohio State's 5 versus those 4, and whichever blitzer Wink Martindale decides he wants to send on that particular snap. But it's a top 4 of Michigan tackles and ends that are very good. But the strength is no doubt on the interior with Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. And I get Carson Hinsman played against those guys last year, right? So that shouldn't be
fairly well.
Yeah, I thought it played fine. It wasn't his worst game of the year. So
there were stretches, including in that game, that I think get overlooked. The long methodical drive on the ground that was okay, well, maybe Ohio State has switched this thing back, and it was the defense that couldn't get off the field. I thought in that game Ohio State did enough. Now, we did focus a lot on the last snap offensively, and the interior pressure came, but by and large, I didn't think the offensive line was problematic in that matchup a year ago.
No, not for the entirety of the game, no. And Michigan will win some of those battles because they're also very good up front, right? It's the same thing. Look at the Penn State game. Sometimes Ohio State found itself in a position where Donovan Jackson had to black Abdul Carter one-on-one, and Abdul Carter kind of smoked him and got a couple of sacks, right? But was that Ohio State's undoing for the game? No. So you have to weather those moments, and they're going to happen on Saturday against this defensive line. But I think the fact that Carson Hinsman has played against this front, I know Donovan Jackson is in a different position, but he's played against him, and so has Josh Fryer. There should be a reasonable amount of confidence from Ohio State's offensive line that it can win enough for Ohio State to win this game. It is clearly the path to victory for Michigan is for that front 4 to really wreck this entire game for Ohio State. I think that's really hard to do for any defensive line unless you are playing a totally overmatched opponent. Not dissimilar from what we saw from Ohio State last week against Indiana, and what we saw from Michigan in the second half of their game against Indiana. That offensive line could not handle that. I think Ohio State's offensive line and Will Howard at quarterback and the options and the weapons and the scheme of Chip Kelly, I think they'll be able to handle it enough to go win the game.
And this Michigan defensive front is not nearly as deep as they've been the last couple of years. And Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham have played a lot of snaps this year, and they have not been nearly as fresh or nearly as impactful in Michigan's games throughout this season as they were a year ago. But that's also because they don't know what's coming on every play, which I think changes things a little bit.
That would make it a little more difficult.
For defensive line.
Just a little bit?
Yeah, at least a little.
Okay.
To me, that matchup is clearly the one to watch, but that's Michigan's path to winning this game on defense. The only path they have to winning this game on offense is if Ohio State's linebackers don't tackle. So to me, it's Sonny Styles and C.J. Hicks, or Cody Simon, C.J. Hicks, Arvell Reese, making sure that Khalil Mullings and Donovan Edwards go down when they get hit. Mm-hmm. If Ohio State is able to keep Michigan from having a handful of 10, 15-yard runs that really get their confidence going and get their offensive line feeling a little juiced up, I don't think Michigan will be able to affect Ohio State defensively enough to even allow Davis Warren or their very anemic passing game to try and catch you off balance. So it's tackling. I mean, this is not pregame keys, but this is the one area where, as good as Cody Simon's been this season, you have seen each of the last couple of games him hitting guys in the middle of the line and bouncing off, and that's fine. You're playing good running backs. Devin Mockabee at Purdue is a good player. The Cam guy,
Cam Porter
at Northwestern, good player. What we saw with Indiana's running backs, they're good players, but you got to tackle and you got to wrap guys up and get them to the ground, because Michigan cannot move the ball through the air effectively if they don't have the threat of a home run with the running game.
Well, it's not just Edwards and Mullings either. I mean,
we
saw a year ago with Alex Orji in certain situations, and even J.J. McCarthy to some extent. If you don't corral the quarterback, and we've spent a ton of time over the last several years and we've asked Jim Knowles, Bill, like, is this sort of a weakness, or are you concerned about the ability to handle rushing quarterbacks? And there's no perfect way to scheme up against that.
No.
It is. There are ways to mitigate the risk, but at the end of the day, like, if an athletic quarterback is taking off, you got to get him on the ground.
Yeah, and they're going to run Davis Warren in this game. I have no doubt about that. He's
mobile.
He's fairly mobile, right? He's not as athletic as JJ McCarthy, but like similar kind of conversation, I think. And then the Alex Orji thing is more obvious, I think, quarterback design run game, which hasn't looked great for Michigan for much of the year. But the thing they haven't done a ton of is run Warren when he's in there, and I bet Michigan does that. And Jim Knowles was asked about that last week when Ohio State was getting ready to play Indiana, because Curtis Work in his past had been a fairly decent runner, but had not run much this year. And Jim Knowles said, like, he thinks they're pretty good with the designed quarterback run. It's the scrambles and the draw plays that have given them problems more than anything else. So I bet Michigan will look to exploit those things. If you get Davis Warren moving behind the line of scrimmage, stand a pretty reasonable chance of him throwing you the ball. So there's like, you want to heat him up, you want to get him moving, but you have to be careful of him actually getting forward in this game.
And to expound on the conversation about the running backs, like where Ohio State is decidedly different this year, we talked about it on Rivalry Kickoff on Tuesday, is Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom. Like they allow you to send Cody Simon and Sonny Styles and be more active with blitzing, and still having what you feel like is a pretty surefire tackler in the middle to knock down Mullings or Donovan Edwards or Colston Loveland or whoever it is that Michigan's trying to get the little, middle screens to and that sort of stuff. Because they don't have much, but what they do have is an offense that if they get going, because you aren't tackling, that you get them going downhill, and that's a problem. This is not nearly as good a Michigan offensive line as they've had, especially at the tackle positions, but it's still more than effective to be a problem in this game if Ohio State doesn't tackle.
I feel like at times the reliability mixed with high-end production of Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs can sometimes get overlooked. You take it for granted, but you don't have to look much further than the few plays that truly cost Ohio State the most in the game in the Big House last year. Just missing with Malik Hartford turning his head, Sonny Styles, taking a wrong angle and missing a tackle. Like, there just could not be a bigger upgrade than having a healthy Lathan Ransom and then putting Caleb Downs out there compared to what Ohio State was dealing with at safety a year ago.
Yeah.
And I say that with all due respect to the improvements that Josh Proctor made over the course of the year, but that
and Sonny, what he was
what Sonny was trying to do in year one, but like that's really what's changed the entire picture of the Ohio State defense.
It has, but it definitely has, yes. But I do think that'll be important this week, to Burm's point. Like, I remember the Michigan USC game. Like, Michigan was just running into a wall, like nothing, and then all of a sudden, Kalum Mullings gets out, and the safety takes a banana angle, and he runs 64 yards, and Michigan's inside the 5-yard line
with a minute to go,
and goes and wins the game. Right? It's like it can. Now Ohio State's offense is much better than USC's, and maybe the game won't be so close that matters. But that's the kind of thing that has made Michigan even like mildly successful on offense when it has been, is that it's not their scheme. Yeah. It's not their scheme, and it's not even really like their talent necessarily. Like they play hard, like, and they don't go away. And if you make a mistake, they will make you pay for it.
For a team that's lost 5 games this year, like even the Texas game, they fought back. Yeah. USC game, which should have been a loss. The Minnesota game, which very well, like, they are not going to quit. That is what you know. They're going to come into this game confident, and Ohio State's going to have to rip that away from them.
Yeah,
I think that's what's remarkable about how poorly this season has gone up to this point for Michigan is like, I wonder how many quarterbacks from around the country, if you plug them into the Michigan roster, if we would be talking about a playoff team. Because to me, I think they
really screwed that up.
That's the only thing that is really limiting them. And we've also seen relatively limited Michigan offenses, including in the last 3 years. Like, I still would stand here and say that I don't believe that J.J. McCarthy by himself is I don't know why he was a first-round draft pick. I don't see it. I never thought that the threat was that's the person that you have to take care of. But the point is, we've seen Michigan offenses win in these games by being stubborn, by relying on physicality. They still will have the potential for that. And if they get just 2 or 3 plays from Warren or Orji, then this game becomes a very different matter.
It does. And Warren does have a pretty live arm, I think. I've said this a few times, I think on KOTN, if he can get to the top of his drop and number one is open, he can rip that throw like in a pretty impressive way. It's just like anything after that becomes a little problematic. So like that puts an onus, I guess, probably first and foremost on the pressure to make sure he can't see that, but like stickiness with your coverage so that he doesn't feel confident about throwing it to that first open receiver, and that's where the opportunities come, I think, for Ohio State's defense.
There's so much talk about Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, but it's really about Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton. If they can affect the Michigan pass protection up the middle, what we've seen all year with Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau is getting off the edge and running past the quarterback and letting a guy step up and make a play in the pocket or run out of the pocket. This is a game where Ohio State's defensive tackles have to be able to affect the pass rush.
I'd take the similar approach, but I think this is a Jack and JT game for me.
I think you want the quarterback to move parallels. I think you want him moving to the sidelines
and rolling out and trying to use his legs. 100%. I agree. I don't take anything away from your point. I feel like that's bound to happen. Like if you get the best version of Tyleik Williams, if you're using Edric Houston alongside Ty Hamilton, I feel like Ohio State is in a really good position to collapse that pocket, which is why I think that some of the signs of Jack Sawyer taking off that we've seen in the last 3 or 4 weeks, the one play in particular that JT Tuimoloau made on Saturday, it was like, hey, well, that's a reminder of freaky athleticism that most defensive ends, you're never going to see them make a play like that. How quickly he can get off the ball and to the football. We have not seen them deliver that in this game in particular in the previous 3 years, right? Like, maybe Jack had made some plays a year ago, out to be fair in that situation, but they're the ones that have to be aware if that does get spilled out to them, because we have seen them, as you mentioned, run right past the quarterback. They're going to have to be at their best in this game because of what you can't let these 2 or 3 Warren or Orgy plays affect Ohio State. And I think we're talking way more about the defense than I ever imagined we would. But
because the defense has to get off the field.
Yeah.
That is the path to Michigan having a chance to upset Ohio State. If Ohio State has 3 possessions in the first half, like they did against Nebraska, or like they did against Iowa, or like they did against Northwestern, then you are going to go into the second half in a 7-3 or 10-7 type game, and the stadium is going to clench up so tightly.
But I don't think they should.
I don't think they should, but they're going to.
You should have every if that's the case, and it very well may be, it's the best third quarter team in the country that completely shuts the door there.
I think Ohio State needs to have 5 or 6 first half possessions in this game.
Yeah.
And that means getting off the field. So that means tackling, that means pressure, that means not allowing Colston Loveland to be left uncovered if he's playing, which we expect he will. You can't let that happen. Now, offensively, it's a different ballgame.
Because I think that Michigan's very different at quarterback. I also think Michigan's very different in the secondary. Assuming Will Johnson doesn't play, I know Sharon Moore said we'll see with him. He's been saying that for a month and a half. I don't think Will Johnson will play in this game, and they've had some other injuries at safety.
Rod Moore being out.
Rod Moore's out, has been out all year. Keon Sabb transferred. Mikey Sainer still is in the NFL. It is a very different Michigan secondary that I think basically every time Michigan's played a team with good receivers, they've not done a good job of covering them. Texas, Washington. Yeah, so I think they did a nice job against Indiana. But again, they totally overwhelmed them up front, and there was just no opportunities really. Also, Indiana did have some drops in that game that I think would have changed.
Even USC and Miller Moss through the ball.
Yeah, so I said it on Rivalry Kickoff that I think there's going to be some real opportunities there. That those two dynamics I think drastically change the matchup from years past. Also, not having Connor Stallions does too. But if Wink
we're burying the lead, that's the single most impactful loss they've suffered.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, him or Jim Harbaugh, maybe.
Well, they're a package deal.
They are a package deal. Don't let anybody fool you. If Wink Martindale is going to continue to blitz as much as he's blitzed all year and trust his secondary to cover Ohio State one-on-one, it will be a bad day for me. We've seen that movie before, and it could very well look like 2018.
I think back to when Will Johnson was playing, he was still giving up some throws. I'm not saying that to diminish. He's a first-round draft pick. He is an extremely good corner. But I think there were probably enough other issues going on around on the Michigan defense at that point of the year that you could make some big plays on him. He could also end a game with a pick six because he was willing to bet on himself and take chances and gamble.
They'd have two fewer wins if he didn't have pick sixes.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just to hammer home that point that, like, even if Will Johnson does play, it doesn't necessarily change the dynamic that I think Ohio State needs to. It's probably better for that front five to let them be in pass protection situations for Will Howard. I think that they're better equipped to do that. And Will Howard is such a good decision maker that whether you're partnering that with RPO throws or just relying on the fact that you have Emeka Ibuka, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brandon Innes on your side, like that matchup, no matter what, favors Ohio State decisively.
Yeah, which is why I think this game is actually setting up to be one of the real anomalies in this series, because I've said it, I don't know if I said it on one of our shows earlier this week or not, but I don't think this is a game where Ohio State has to win the rushing battle to beat Michigan this week, because I think there's a real possibility that Michigan could run for 126 yards and Ohio State could run for 107. And Ohio State could throw for 280, and Michigan will throw for 114. So, like, I don't think it matters if you win the rushing game this week. You have to have an effective rushing game if you're Ohio State.
Sure.
It cannot be just getting stopped at the line of scrimmage.
Situationally.
Like, you have to be able to threaten them with the run. But this game comes down to Will Howard being ready for the pass rush of Michigan, right? I mean, ultimately. What else is there?
I don't know.
I think that's it.
That seems like it. So that was the other.
Ohio State's receivers against this secondary.
Is there anything on special teams that you're aware of here?
Michigan's got a really good kicker, Dominic Zavada. He's kicked a couple of 50-yarders, hit a 56-yarder last week. So they'll throw him out there. Like I don't think where most teams might be in a position where they'll try to like flip the field, Michigan will try to kick a 55-yard field goal.
Probably not this weekend.
Windy?
No.
Hard balls.
The air pressure, the football is going to be super hard. It's going to be like 22 degrees at kickoff.
Okay. You know, I'm not a meteorologist.
Yeah, I'm saying
well, he said that you were a balls knower, so
I thought you were talking
grossly
about
overstated.
It will be hard to kick a ball that far.
It was grossly stated too.
It will be hard to kick a ball that far this weekend.
Okay.
It's only supposed to be like 8 to 10 mile an hour.
Oh, here we go. Yeah,
not supposed to be like sunny, but it's going to be really cold, and that football is hard to hit squarely from that.
What if you let some air out of it?
That's a possibility.
What does Michigan know?
Listen,
about
if this game comes down to kicking, Ohio State's in trouble. Okay.
I don't think it's going to come down to kicking. But
yeah, Jaden Felding's missed one field goal this year. He's done a fine job, but he's certainly not been as reliable as Dominic Zapata, Empanada has been for Michigan.
Didn't make the cut for the finalists.
He wasn't.
For the Groza Award.
I was doing my all Big Ten stuff earlier in the day on Tuesday, and I had him as the kicker of the year in the Big Ten, and then he wasn't a Groza finalist.
I have a feeling that later this week, maybe it'll be on a Thanksgiving Thursday 3 Thoughts, that I'm going to have to talk about awards voting.
Yeah.
Because, my God, it's getting worse every single year. Jeremiah Smith, I don't know what to say.
Did he not make the finalists for the Blitnikoff?
He did not.
He sure didn't.
What?
So bottle that up.
Wow.
Save it for Thursday, because we're not thankful for college football individual awards voting, because it's literally the dumbest thing that exists anywhere. But the point is, everybody on Ohio State's roster needs to be stock up if they're going to win the game and get some gold pants and end the losing streak. So it didn't make sense to narrow it down.
America, I know what tonight is. It's the night before Thanksgiving, baby. You're going out there, you're getting crazy. We need everyone to be watching our show on Thursday morning. So be safe tonight, okay? You can get wild on them streets. You know what I'm saying?
What was the this in the head nod?
Hey, you guys know how it be on the night before Thanksgiving.
How's it be?
Yeah.
It'd be crazy out there.
It's the biggest party night of the year.
It is the biggest drinking night of the year.
I can't wait.
So be safe, and we'll see you at 5 a.m. for Gassers on the Podcast Daily on Thursday.
For Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham, I am Austin Ward. This has been a modified Stock Watch on the Wednesday of the game week. Have a great day. We'll see you later.